welcome to Nostalgia Marcana. I'm your host, Doug Leaf. Each episode of this podcast, we'll look back on the movies, TV, games, people, and phenomena that we still love talking about all these years later, and ask ourselves why these bits of pop culture still enchant us today. This week, we'll be revisiting
science fiction.
Let's do the time warp again, and again, and again, and again, because for nearly 50 years, the Rocky Horror Picture Show has been dominating midnight showings like no other movie before or since. It is a unique miracle of its own, and I'm very excited to be closing out our Halloween coverage on this subject, at least fingers crossed that the strike is over and we can release this episode when we plan to, at midnight, of course, the day before Halloween. And I'm hoping it's going to be part of a Tim Curry trifecta, because after this, I'll be releasing the episode on Muppet Treasure Island that I've been holding in stasis pending the strike. And then we're banking on recording an episode on Clue. So we're going full Tim Curry for a few weeks. So really excited about that. But to help me talk all about Rocky Horror Picture Show is a very old friend of mine, a dear friend, and she is an actress, a writer, director, producer. You've seen her on Hulu's Difficult People, where she plays Lola. She's also a writer, director, and producer on the rebooted Quantum Leap on NBC, so she knows a whole lot about sci-fi. Ladies and gentlemen, Shakina Nayfack.
Hey! So happy to be here talking to you about Rocky Horror.
I'm very excited because, as we were just talking about off mic, this was my first time watching it all the way through. The only other time I saw it was at your house when we must have been teenagers, and I think we watched like half of it. I think there were other people there too. It wasn't just me. I don't know if it was a party or something, but I feel like we only got through like half of it, and we were all too damn tired. We couldn't go any further. We just passed the fuck out.
And I think we were like 11 or 12, honestly.
Right.
I think we were really young.
Probably right. Definitely something we watched way too young. But the funny thing is, like, this thing is so catchy. Like, when I went back to watch it this time, I was like, I know all of these songs. Even the ones that were in the movie, part of the movie we didn't get to. I feel like I knew them.
Yeah.
So, but let me start with you. Tell me about your nostalgic memories of this. Where did it start, and your love of this topic?
Gosh, I think I saw Rocky Horror for the first time in 5th grade. I had heard about it, I think, because I was already a Tim Curry lover. I think I must have seen Clue or something. And I remember picking up this book called The Incredibly Strange Film Book, and it had a section on Rocky Horror, and I saw these pictures of Tim Curry in the lingerie and was just like, that's who I am. It was like before we had the language of transness, but I knew that I was queer in some way. And when I just saw him in those fishnets and that lipstick and those crazy eyebrows, I was like, this is unreal and this is what I want to do. So I remember, it was just in the Blockbuster Video, like in the horror movie section, I think, and just had that iconic red lips on the box cover. And I knew what it was, but I acted like I didn't. And I remember asking my dad, like, oh, can I rent this one? And he was like, sure, whatever. And then I waited till everyone was asleep. And then I watched it. And then I was like, this is the dream. And yeah, I mean, it was like, I would watch it over and over again. I saw it for the first time live with the stage cast when I was 15. And actually my dad like picked me up from the movies at like 2:30 in the morning, and I was like in the bathroom of this scuzzy Hillcrest movie theater in San Diego, like trying to wash the makeup off my face and throw away the fishnets and press on nails that I stole from the drugstore before the movie. And, you know, and I remember like being I was sitting on the aisle with a friend of mine from Jewish camp, and she had her license. Or no, maybe she didn't even have her license yet. So maybe we were both 15, but I was sitting on the aisle seat, and then the guy and the cast member playing Rocky was like running up and down the aisles in his gold Speedos. And it was like the closest I'd ever been to like a man with like his bulge bouncing around in some, you know, shimmery undies. And I was like so ecstatic. I was so ecstatic that this was real, you know? But then I was also so terrified that I would like get in trouble. And I can only imagine when I got in the car after my dad was picking me up at 2:30, and I definitely smelled like weed, and I definitely had like, you know, makeup. Like you could only wash your face so well in like a scuzzy movie bathroom. So, you know, I wasn't really fooling anyone, but yeah, it was formative for sure.
I was going to say, that's very much a thing as a parent that I can relate to, which is like, you think you're fooling your parents with all this shit. It's like, no, they see right through you every time.
I remember when I was just experimenting with makeup, and like, I was probably also like in 5th grade or whatever, and I like snuck into my mom's makeup and put on mascara or whatever. And then she came home from work and she was like, "You have something on your eyes." And I was like, "What?" And then I went into the bathroom and looked, and I just had like Twiggy painted on, like eyelashes from like just blinking and not knowing how to put mascara on, but I had like black streaks all down my cheeks. And I don't know how long I had them just sit around all afternoon. And then my mom came home and was like, you know, so.
That rings very true, having known you all these years.
Yes,
so,
of course.
I wanted to ask you that because you brought this up. You know, the movie has become one of those like lighthouses, I think, for people who are anything other than cisgender heterosexual. Like, if you're anything other than like bog standard middle of the bell curve human, like there's something about this movie that says like, you know, come to us. You're
right.
home. You know?
Yeah.
Was it that way for you?
Yeah, you know, the VHS tape had this like sort of trailer before the movie for the live experience, and it like, you know, it was footage from back when these midnight showings were like all the rage in New York City and elsewhere, and it just showed all these people like dressed up in their versions, their cosplay, you know, tap dancing down the street, doing the time warp, throwing toast and putting newspaper over their heads. And when people like sprayed water on them, and it had the tagline, "Don't dream it, be it." And that, which is from like the, you know, closing number of the movie. But yeah, it was a lighthouse. It was a beacon for, you know, the freaks and weirdos. And it was like a place, not only a movie that you could see yourself in if you were outside the norm, but also a real legitimate place you could go like every weekend to be with people who were expressing themselves in the ways that I wanted to express myself, you know? And I don't even know how many times I saw it live, but I went a lot. I went in San Diego. I went in Orange County. I went in Los Angeles. I just, you know, I convinced somehow when I was in like confirmation, I convinced my temple to like do a youth group trip to Rocky Horror in Long Beach. And then we all had like a sleepover in the sanctuary afterwards. It was wild. But you know, yeah.
Your temple was a lot cooler than mine.
Yeah, well, you grew up conservative, I grew up reform, and therein lies the rub.
Still on the reform side, though. We ate plenty of trafe.
Okay.
That's pork and shrimp and stuff for you goyim out there. And I do think there is something to be said about like Jewish camp and musicals. Like there is some, I don't know exactly what
there's a definite
is,
intersection between like Jewish teenagers of the 90s and youth group culture and like sexual promiscuity and exploration and musical theater. It was all rolled up into one.
Totally. I was on the outside of that sexual exploration, but I knew it was happening without me. So, but like this movie really is kind of a minor miracle when you look at like it's it's very weird. It is geared towards a niche audience to a degree, and so just as like a business proposition, it's hard to imagine how in like the early 70s, because this came out in 75 after the original stage show from 73, like in that culture, in that time in the country, like to imagine that someone is going to write a check to make this movie at all is mind-blowing. And then the fact that it ever succeeded was really just a tribute to these midnight showings that allowed it to sort of survive, plus the fact that there was this scene in Fame where they all get to see it, and that like let everybody else in the country know this thing exists.
That's right. Yeah, but even before that, there were these midnight showings, but they were silent. Like people were going, but it didn't have the audience participation. And then I wish I could remember, because I knew way back when what the first line was that was yelled out. I know it was like a Salminio thing, but there was like this moment when the silence was broken and someone, called Brad an asshole or something, yelled it out. And that was the beginning. Like the floodgates were open. And then when I was in 6th grade, I bought the box set, the CD box set that had like songs from the vaults. There were songs that were cut from Rocky Horror. They had songs from like the Japanese production and other things. But there was also this album that you could probably still get that was called the Audience Participation album. And it was a full recording of the entire movie on cassette or CD. And that's how I learned everything you were supposed to yell. And the audience call and response was, it was like an oral tradition up to that point. You would go to the theater and you would hear people yelling things at the screen. Like every time they would say Brad, you'd go asshole, and there were like so many little things that you yell out, when the criminologist, the narrator has some of his lines, or when the time warp, line riffraffs like, I've got to lose control, and everyone would yell, smoke a bowl. And like, there was just like big sort of eruptions of things. But then I learned, like I said, from listening to the Participation recording, but then things would change in like local theaters, like depending where you were and, who was, with whatever cast, new traditions would emerge. And so sometimes like I would go to a theater and I would yell something that I learned from this album that was really a timepiece, and no one else would be yelling it because it was no longer like that wasn't what was done at that theater, and someone else would yell something else. And I haven't been to a live show in decades now, but I often wonder like what things still, catch on. Like, for example, well, I guess we'll talk to it as we go through the movie, but like I remember like certain things from different places, that different parts of the movie that were so iconic.
Yeah, and it's so iconic that like, again, me not having been to one of those live screenings, I still know what some of those things are. Like,
yeah.
It's just it like you can feel it in this movie, and it's unique to this movie. I can't think of any other movie that has anything like this as part of the intended experience, because like I watched it, here at home, and it's a good time. I enjoyed it, but I knew it like instinctively, like I'm getting like 20% of the intended experience. Oh
yeah. Because I mean, there's like throwing toilet paper, throwing toast, spraying water, like yelling things, holding up lighters, putting a newspaper over your head in the rain. I mean, there's just like so many sort of like prop and gag things, plus the people running around in the aisles performing the show in front of you. So yeah, it's so immersive. And
I'm trying to remember, didn't you ever do that yourself, some of the live performing?
No, I wish that I had. I really wanted to, but no, I've never been a part of a live show in front of the theater or on stage. I mean, it's still a possibility. It could happen.
It's plenty of time.
Yeah.
It's still showing at midnight somewhere, I guess.
Exactly.
So let's get into it. Let's get into the movie, because this is it's fun to watch, because it straight up makes no sense, and that's so far from the point that because I was watching it going like, okay, wait, why is he doing this? Why is this happening? I quickly sussed out like, I should not be caring about. These are the wrong questions to ask.
Well, I think it's important to know that the whole premise was based off of these like pulp sci-fi movies from the 50s that already kind of didn't make sense. So in an effort to kind of be like the original stage show was a parody of these other like sci-fi pulp classics. So it was already mocking something, and so it was self-aware from the beginning, and then it became like doubly self-aware when you added the participation to it.
Yeah, and so we could talk about the opening of the movie. That's a good segue, because the first thing we get is this version of the 20th Century Fox logo, but there's like rock and roll guitars behind it, which I am like always in the pocket for like someone taking the studio logo and changing it up somehow specific to the movie. I don't know why that gets me every time, but I'm like, ooh, they did something with the logo.
Totally. It starts from the beginning.
And then we get science fiction, the opening number.
Science fiction double feature with those iconic red lips.
Michael Rainey was ill the day the earth stood still, but he told us where we stand. And Flash Gordon was there in silver underwear. Claude Rains was the invisible man. Then something went wrong for Fay Ray and King Kong. They got caught in a celluloid jam. Then at a deadly pace, it came from outer space. And this is how the message ran. Science fiction.
Which are Magenta's lips, I believe, with Riff Raff singing, right? And this song, like, as you just mentioned, it name checks all of these classic sci-fi movies like The Day the Earth Stood Still and Forbidden Planet, like all of this stuff.
Forbidden Planet, which incidentally was produced by my great uncle, Nicholas Nayfack, my Hollywood legacy claim to fame.
Goddamn nepotism, baby.
I know.
That's a great movie, by the way. You should be very proud of that. That is a true classic. If
true
anyone
classic.
hasn't seen it, I will hang on to that for a future episode because, Forbidden Planet is pretty rad. But like, what's interesting is a lot of the things that name checks are, more considered classics and less. There's some of it though is like the like B tier, like giant ants type movies from the 50s, right. And like this has I kind of miss that tier of sci-fi movie. It doesn't really exist anymore. We sort of have things like Sharknado, which are like trying to be that, but they're so trying to do it. There's something.
Yeah, they
about
still
the
have like big
earnestness.
budgets and crazy effects. That the point was like you could see the strings pulling the models, of these original ones. They were so bad, and they were also like, I mean, not all of them, but trying to find ways to be like sexy sci-fi low budge,
Oh yeah, I mean, you bring in, Elvira type characters and stuff, and it's like, hey, look, cleavage. It's the 1950s.
Night call nurses from outer space, things like that.
Yep. All of that stuff. And so like you can feel that's in the DNA of this movie on purpose. Like they are trying to create something like that. And so we go to their this wedding at a church where the Ralph and Betty are getting married and they're running off. And this is like one of the first audience participation things that I could think of like, I know what this is, because you throw rice at the screen as they get married.
Yep. As they come out of the church, you throw rice at the screen.
Yep. I also have in my notes, there's this photographer who comes up and takes a picture, and the guy like looks like Eugene Levy, but not really.
Oh, that's funny.
And like, he felt like there's a couple of like background extras basically in this part of the movie that seemed so conspicuous. I kept waiting for them to show up again, and they never did. Like there's
a lot of them are time warp dancers. A lot of the people that are at the wedding are time warp dancers, just in like totally other costumes and stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure they reused actors and stuff for that, as part of their ensemble. I just was expecting them to be like literal characters that came back. But this is where we meet Barry Bostwick and Susan Sarandon. Way
Icons.
Before they were famous. Yeah. As Brad and Janet.
And so when we meet Brad, we say asshole, and then we meet Janet and we say slut.
Both of those things are true. Although he is also a slut, as we will find out.
Yes.
They are like, they're introduced as like such squares.
Yes.
That it's like, this is perfect. Like they're these absolutely like, I would say 50s, but the movie is definitely set. Actually, you can tell exactly like the date of the movie because
Nixon's resigning on the radio.
Right. Yeah. So you know exactly when it is. Like you do, you just listen to Nixon resigning. But yeah, I really like Damn It, Janet.
Hey, Janet.
Yes, Brad?
I've got something to say.
Uh-huh.
I really love the skillful way you beat the other girls to the bride's bouquet.
Brad.
The river was deep, but I swam it.
Janet,
The future is ours, so let's plan it.
Janet,
So please, don't tell me to can it.
Janet,
I've one thing to say, and that's damn it, Janet, I love you. The road was long, but I ran it.
Janet,
There's a fire in my heart, and you fan it.
Janet,
If there's one fool for you, then I am it.
Janet,
I've one thing to say, and that's damn it, Janet, I love you. Here's a ring to prove that I'm no joker. There's 3 ways that love can grow. That's good, bad, or mediocre. Janet, I love you so.
It's just like this music. First of all, that we should mention the music is all written by Richard O'Brien, who plays Riff Raff. It reminded me a lot of Jim Steinman in his songwriting.
That's interesting.
So he's, if you don't know who he is, he's the guy behind Odd Connection, but Meatloaf's singing career outside of this movie, of course.
Oh, well, that would make sense in some ways.
Yeah, we'll get to it, but Meatloaf is in this movie. But like, it's this very like throwback 50s kind of sound for a lot of it. Like maybe half of it are these sort of like almost like Four Seasons, Frankie Valli type songs. And this is one of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think the movie itself was like commenting on this resistance to a changing culture, you know, that like was still lingering around in 1975. I mean, there was a sexual revolution happening, but there was also still, you know, a whole cultural pushback to that from, you know, like the middle America, especially where the movie takes place. So I think that Brad and Janet kind of represent the fall of that facade for that generation.
I think that's a good point. Like, you are coming off of like the late 60s counterculture with this, and it's very much of a piece of that same idea of like, you know, you squares are actually freaks inside just like the rest of us.
Exactly.
Waiting to come out. And like literally, like we just mentioned, like the American Gothic couple from the painting, the guy with the big pitchfork and his wife, like they're behind them doing the backing vocals. Yeah.
I mean, that's Richard O'Brien and Magenta. I can't think of her name right now, but
I don't have it in front of me either. But you all have IMDb. You can figure it out.
Yes.
So
Patricia Quinn.
Thank you. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this is a great number. I didn't think you could rhyme so many things with Janet, but they do a great job. And they're off. But we find out they are going to see Dr. Everett Scott, the science teacher who they met in his class. And we get our first visit from the narrator, who is, I guess he's supposed to be a criminologist, you said, right?
It seemed a fairly ordinary night when Brad Majors and his fiancée, Janet Weiss, 2 young, ordinary, healthy kids, left Denton that late November evening to visit a Dr. Everett Scott, ex-tutor and now friend to both of them. It's true, there were dark storm clouds, heavy, black, and pendulous, toward which they were driving. It's true also that the spare tire they were carrying was badly in need of some air. But they, being normal kids and on a night out, well, they were not going to let a storm spoil the events of their evening. On a night out. It was a night out they were going to remember for a very long time.
Yes, he's a criminologist, and he's studying. He studied Dr. Frankenfurter and the phenomenon of the castle that we're soon to go to. So Brad
Whatever
and Janet
the hell
head out.
this is.
Yes, yeah, Brad, the spaceship castle. Brad and Janet head out because they decide they're going to get married after seeing their besties get married, and they think they have to go see Dr. Scott, the professor who brought them together, for his blessing, basically. And then they ended up getting a flat tire in this rainstorm, and that's where we get the song "There's a Light" that takes them, to this castle where everything unfolds.
In the velvet darkness of the blackest night, burning bright, there's a guiding star. No matter what or who you are, there's a light over at the Frankenstein place. There's a light burning in the fireplace. There's a light in the darkness of every bloody
Yeah, I love, and again, like showing their like roots. There's a transition between the end of the "Damn It, Janet" number and when they're in the rain. That's like a wipe, but it's like a drippy, like blood wipe.
It's the pulp horror wipe. Yeah,
Totally. And then, yeah, you're right. They're in the rain. They're listening to Nixon. There's the blowout. They decide, hey, I'll go for help at the castle we passed down the road. And there's this, they have this debate about whether Janet's going to just hang out at the car. And she says, no, I'm going. And one of the lines, the owner might be a beautiful woman and you'll never come back again. And close, but not quite. And there's that sign that says "Enter at your own risk," and I love that the song is like "There's a light over at the Frankenstein place." Like there's something like so quaint about that lyric.
Yep. And this is when if you are in the movie live, you're holding your newspaper over your head like Susan Sarandon is, while people spray water bottles and get you wet, or you're holding up your cigarette lighter for "There's a Light."
Yeah, and we see briefly you can see Riff Raff in the window. Looking at them, that's our first look at him. Who's basically he's Igor. He's kind of he's a little more in common with, say, the version of Igor from Young Frankenstein than like true Igor. Just really a fun performance from this guy. He's one of the highlights in the movie, I think. And of course, he not surprisingly gives himself some of the best songs because he wrote them.
Yep.
But on their way to the castle, a whole bunch of bikers pass them, which we'll find out what that's about later. Sort of. I mean, again, a lot of plot details kind of missing, but there's bikers about.
And when they get inside, they get to the door, Riff Raff answers, and Brad's like, I wonder if you have a telephone we might use? And then he says, you've arrived on a rather special night. It's one of our master's affairs.
Yeah.
Let's remember that line.
Oh, yes. Yeah, the voice he uses, it's not his natural voice. Because you hear him sing later. Well, first of all, you heard him sing science fiction without realizing it. Very different sounding voice he uses for that. And he sings some stuff at the very end of the movie where, again, very, very different sound to his voice. But he spends most of the movie with this voice, which I love. And was it where Magenta comes in? What's the line about we're all lucky?
What kind of a place is this?
It's probably some kind of hunting lodge for rich weirdos.
This way.
Are you having a party?
You've arrived on a rather special night. It's one of the master's affairs.
Oh, lucky him.
You're lucky. He's lucky. I'm lucky. We're all lucky.
Yeah, you're lucky. He's lucky. We're all lucky. Ha ha ha. She's sliding down a banister with a feather duster.
Yeah, this is when like the camp goes into overdrive. And it kind of never lets up from this point. Like at first we're like, we're in a horror movie musical. And then from this point onward, it's like, we're in the fucking craziest horror musical. Like, let's go, full sequence all the way. And he invites us all to do the time warp.
It's astounding. Time is fleeting. Madness takes its toll. But listen closely.
Not for very much longer.
I've got to keep control.
Just a jump to the left. With your hands on your hip.
Yeah, and this is the dance. I mean, the instructions on how to do the dance are in the lyrics themselves. It's just a jump to the
Always
left,
a winner.
Step to the right. Put your hands on your hips and turn your knees in tight. It's pelvic thrust. It'll drive you and say, yay, 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 and let's do the time warp again. And everyone in the theater jumps up and does this dance. And it was done at bar mitzvahs and weddings, and, it really was like a pop culture thing for a long time.
If you get the lyrics to tell you how to do the dance, you will achieve immortality at weddings and proms and bar mitzvahs and stuff.
That's right.
You can get grandma up to do the time warp. She just has to listen carefully and follow what everyone else is doing. This one kind of gets busted out at Halloween for obvious reasons. Like, it's the song most people know from the movie. It's the most fun. It's like, kind of the Monster Mash on steroids.
That's right. It's totally a Monster Mash song. Yeah. And it's also when we get to see all those bikers kind of having their own party. So we realize that there's this whole wackadoo ensemble in this castle, ready to get their funk on.
Yeah, like the party goers there, like they're not Cenobites, but they are weird. There's like a sense of like, oh, none of them are normal. Like there's something off about all of them.
Yeah.
And we also like start doing some more fourth wall breaking because the narrator starts telling you how to do the time warp and dancing along.
Yes.
So like, yeah, we're all in. Like, this is so much fun that I feel like this is like, you have to make this investment in how fun this is. It gets you to go along with whatever the fuck else happens in this movie. Like, oh, I get it. This is an amusement park ride now.
Right.
I'm in.
Yeah. And it's also kind of speaks to the way that there's like a spell that Frankenfurter has cast over everyone who comes into his lair. And even the criminologist kind of like you said, gets carried away. We sort of understand later, by the time we get to the end of the movie, that there is some sort of enchantment, that brings people into the subversive sexuality that Frankenfurter proselytizes.
Yeah. And like that's sort of embodied by like when you get to the end of the song, the music kind of goes and everybody just kind of like melts to the floor.
Yeah, everyone collapses, and then we start getting the pulsing beat of Frankenfurter's heel on the elevator.
How'd you do, I see you've met my faithful hand-in-hand. He's just a little brought down because when you knocked, he thought you were the candy man. Don't get strung up by the way I look. Don't judge a book by its cover. I'm not much of a man,
by the light of day, but by night I'm one hell of a lover. I'm just a sweet transvestite from transsexual Transylvania.
Yeah, this movie's paced pretty well, and like they don't waste any time. So like there's almost no time between the end of the time warp and then the next song, which is Sweet Transvestite, where we finally get our full blast of Tim Curry in, fishnets, and like this is such a singular performance. This is
Unreal.
This is a real unicorn of a thing, because you can't imagine anyone else doing it at this point. It's so just like intertwined with Tim Curry, and it's such a balancing act to be able to sell something this weird and to a lot of people, especially then, sexually threatening.
Yeah.
And also like literally threatening, like, because we know he's violent, like he's not a good guy. And like he is a villain of the piece. And so like it's this like crazy like amalgam of stuff he has to do. And it's really funny and like, just well done. Like there's in a career of like amazing characters from this guy, like, Pennywise the Clown, right? So many things he's done. And again, if you stay tuned, we're going to get to Clue and Muppet Treasure Island, like totally different performances, but still like truly Tim Curry in essence. Like, but
this one is singular. This sort of debut. I mean, just the extreme close-ups of his face with those pouty, glossy lips and those crazy eyebrows and all that eyeshadow, and the reveal when he throws off his sparkly robe to show that he's got the corset on and everything, and
he's dressed like Cher from the "If I Could Turn Back Time" video, right? Total like S&M gear. And he just sings this song. Like I wrote in my notes, his character is basically like if the noise was a person. Like that's what he is. This is the most horny performance ever, and that includes like the entire internet's worth of porn. Like he is like that.
So horny,
so singularly thirsty. It's really really fun to watch, and the song is cool because like the song is this like bluesy ode to being a transvestite transsexual
from Transylvania, like from another planet of genderqueer rebels.
Yeah, we don't know that yet. Like he's right. When he says he's from transsexual Transylvania, it's literally like from transsexual, Transylvania, as if he was from Portland, Oregon. Is like what he's saying. We don't know that yet. And man, they're just what a coincidence that the first letters of the traditional home for vampire happen to be TRANS, because that's like half the puns in the movie. They really work that. But yeah, the song itself is just a powerhouse of a performance. And then the mic drop of just like, and I'm going up the elevator and I'm off.
Yeah, but also he so before the iconic anticipation, he says, "I've created a man with blonde hair and a tan, and he's good for relieving my tension, sexual tension."
So, come up to the lab and see what's on the slab. I see you shiver with anticipation. But maybe the rain is really to blame. So I'll remove the cause. But not the symptom.
And this is where we realize that Frankenfurter is like a Frankenstein character, that he's actually created a being we learn later that he intends to bring to life.
To be his fuck buddy. And what's hilarious is sort of like, that's a lot of effort that he doesn't need, because as we'll see, like he completely seduces Brad and Janet in like 10 minutes flat. Like he doesn't have to make a person. He's pretty good at this already.
Right.
But amazing. Just like, and that anticipation line, like, because yes, it's really fun for everybody to scream, say it in the middle of that. But when they're filming it, like when they're writing the song, they don't know that that's going to happen. It's this crazy choice of like, hey, what if I just take this enormous pause right now?
Yeah.
for like to show my power, basically.
Right. And then we get, he sort of zooms away in the elevator, and
they strip down Brad and Janet for no.
They strip down Brad and Janet, because they have to be in their undies and these robes, because they certainly can't wear their wet square clothes to this, extravagant unveiling of the Frankenstein sex toy.
Right. So it's just it's so funny. Like, they don't put them in normal clothes. It's like, we're just gonna strip you down to your underwear, and Brad just keeps going like, can I just use your phone? Like, just like, no, they're not using a phone, Brad. You're in trouble now. So we go up to the lab where we're going to spend a lot of time. I love the look of this set, because the set where the time warp takes place is kind of, more classic haunted mansion stuff. This looks like it's like something out of Willy Wonka. The way
absolutely, it's like Mike TV lair.
Yeah, I thought that too, but just like bright red.
Yeah, and then this bizarre contraption comes down with a bunch of like food coloring, and he gleefully squirts all these colors of fluid into this giant tank where we bring Rocky to life.
Yeah, and before we meet Rocky, he's like, again, kind of name checking or horror things. He looks like a mummy or the Invisible Man, like he's wrapped up in gauze so you can't see him. And this is the second time we've seen Frankenfurter now, and he's already done a quick change because he's dressed like, I wrote my notes, Mamie Eisenhower. Like, it's a very like 50s look.
Yeah, the pearls and this green sort of hospital gown dress.
Yeah, it's like halfway between a hospital gown and like, like something Jackie O would wear.
Mm-hmm.
It's this very odd outfit. He talks about, he's made a biomechanical research, and then as he starts kind of getting more manic about, we're basically doing the classic Frankenstein, like, it's alive, like, sequence. And he's not just like putting the like rainbow colors of goo into the tank. He's like slapping at the like valves in this manic way that makes it clear, like, does he care how much of this stuff he's putting in? Like, it's so manic and silly. He's so like kind of just enraptured with what he's about to do. It's just, again, you have to have the time warp and sweet transvestite to get you to the point where you're just like, oh, okay, this
mad
is going to be this silly. Yeah, mad scientist, but like silly.
Yeah.
And then we get Rocky.
The sword of Damocles is hanging over my head, and I've got the feeling someone's gonna be cutting the thread. Oh, woe is me, my life is a misery. Oh, can't you see that all the sound of a pretty breakdown?
And bursts out. Yeah,
he bursts out with this song that, like, frankly, I never really understood.
The Sword of Damocles.
The Sword of Damocles, which I guess is that he knows from the moment he's born that he's just there to be like a sexual servant.
I guess metaphor, I don't fully understand the use of that metaphor here, which if people, if you haven't read your Bible, like a good Rocky Horror Picture Show audience member, the story of a guy with, literally like a sword dangling over his head by a thread. And it's a metaphor for like, one day this thread is going to snap and sword's going to kill me. I have no idea what it's doing in this song.
Well, I think it's, I mean, what we learn is that Frankenfurter has had a previous lover who first he like hid in a freezer and then who still managed to come alive. This is Meatloaf, Eddie. And then who he ends up killing and eating and forcing everyone else to eat. So,
and I believe half of Eddie's brain is in Rocky's head.
Yes. Half of Eddie's brain is in Rocky's, supposedly. So maybe that's like this, Rocky already has this awareness of his mortality and his fate. Also, I really don't believe that that's the guy singing. I just don't believe that voice is coming out of that man. But I can't be, I don't know. It doesn't look like it's working.
Yeah, it's hard to know. Sometimes 70s filmmaking with the way they sound engineer stuff.
And pre-recorded and played back and lip sync.
It can look odd. I love this. He slaps him around because that's no way to behave on a first day out.
Yes.
And then who's it? Is it Janet says I don't like men with too many muscles, and he just snaps back. I didn't make him for you. Like, that's so
and
good.
everyone screams just one big one when she says, I don't like men with too many muscles in the audience. Just one big one.
Solid joke.
And then he sings, Frankenfurter sings, in just 7 days, I can make you a man.
He'll eat nutritious, high protein, and swallow raw eggs. Try to build up his shoulders, his chest, arms, and legs. Such an effort, if he only knew of my plan. In just 7 days, I can make you a man. He'll do press-ups and chin-ups, do the smirch, clean and jerk. He thinks dynamic tension must be hard work. Such strenuous living, I just don't understand. When in just 7 days, oh baby, I can make you a man.
Right. And I was kind of thinking, oh, okay, so now we have like this like 7-day clock, like we're gonna see like him, you know, I don't know, Pygmalion this guy or in some way, but no, that's not what we're doing. It's just it's a cool song though. I love that as he's singing this, the song starts to get more manic as we get this like Pepe Le Pew moment where Rocky is kind of running around to try to get away from him. Meanwhile, you've got all of the like gifts in the room, so that Frankenfurter's like gotten him. There's like a candy cane looking set of dumbbells.
Yeah,
there's like a pommel
the
horse.
Yeah. Pommel horse. Yeah,
and there's a lot of name checks here to Charles Atlas, both here and in another song. This idea of like he talks about like the weakling gets sand kicked in his face, which is this very old. This guy Charles Atlas was a big kind of bodybuilder, and he was trying to sell you on his exercise regimens and stuff. And the classic ad was always this like skinny nerd like up to his neck in sand, having like a bully like kick sand in his face. But then he goes and gets swole.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's when Eddie bursts out, right? It kind of interrupts the song.
Yeah, he bursts in, and then like we get his song, which is Hot Patootie. It's Meatloaf time. This song, sounds a lot like the stuff Meatloaf would later do in his, big singing career.
Yeah, it's a kind of a classic Meatloaf tune in a lot of ways. And then we realized that Columbia, who's played by Little Nell, it was like Eddie's true love or real crush or something. She's one of the like house servants who's there with Riff Raff and Magenta. She's a tap dancer in a cute little gold tux jacket, and
she's the one with a high-pitched voice.
And she's super excited to see Eddie. But then Eddie kind of ruins the party by breaking out of his icebox on a motorcycle, and Frankenfurter ends up killing him with an ice pick in front of everybody. And like, I was surprised. I knew Meatloaf was in the movie. I didn't realize he would be out of it that quickly. Yeah.
And I always kind of wondered, like, he ended up being such kind of a conservative guy. And I was wondering, like, what did he ever think about his past doing this movie? Was it a thing he still was like proud of, or like it's such a weird turn? Like,
I feel that way about, I really wonder what all these people felt, because no one knew. I mean, it was such a low budget B film. No one knew it was going to become this cult classic that, I mean, right now, Barry Bostwick, as we're recording this, is on tour with a 50th anniversary production of it. That's like, they're showing the movie in all these huge theaters around the country with the live cast. And Barry Bostwick is, I don't know if he's playing the criminologist or if he's just, introducing it, but he's touring with the film right now in all October.
Yeah, I got the impression he was real proud of it and thought it was special. And I wanted to go. I didn't get a chance to research and where's like an interview with Susan Sarandon or something where she reminisces about this, or Tim Curry. I didn't get a chance to look at that stuff, but I would imagine those two would be real just proud of this thing. But you're right, no way you would know from watching this that like Susan Sarandon would go on to get nominated for an Oscar, or when did she? I can't remember if she won or not, but she was definitely nominated.
Yeah,
for playing a nun in some movie about the death penalty with Sean Penn, as I recall. The narrator comes back to tell us that everyone was real upset, and apprehensive. We get this. I'm sorry. Before we even get to that, we get this reprise of "I Can Make You a Man," where he leads Rocky off into this bed chamber, and then the doors close. In this, more rice, more wedding time. And now we're in Janet's. They lead Janet to her red room, where Riff and Columbia are watching on security, and it's all in silhouette. So we think Brad has just come into the room, but it's actually Frankenfurter there to seduce her, which he does handily.
Yeah, these two scenes, these back-to-back scenes of Frankenfurter seducing Janet and then later Brad on the same set with different backlighting, are the scenes that I'm like, does this hold up in a current understanding of consent? Not really. It's a bizarre thing where Frankenfurter comes in pretending to be the other person's lover and then gets discovered, but then is like, but isn't it nice? Didn't it feel good? And ultimately, gets carried away with both of them sexually. And meanwhile, Magenta and Columbia are watching on the security footage with popcorn, enjoying it.
And they do this where he comes in pretending to be Brad and then Janet, and they just have those actors as voices for a while, and then he pops out the wig. What I do love is that the scenes they start off with the identical dialogue.
Yeah,
which is that's very sketch comedy to me. I really like that.
Absolutely.
And then. Janet says something like, "I was saving myself. Promise you won't tell Brad." Again, super square, right? I was saving myself for marriage, but now that I've met this transvestite alien, let's go.
I think again, it's pointing to the secret freak in all of us, in the secret freak in Square America. I think that's really what we're seeing is the breakdown, of those defenses. And I mean, later on, Frank will say, give yourself over to absolute pleasure, swim the warm waters of sins of the flesh. And that's his whole thing. It's just hedonism.
Yeah. 100%. Okay. So we get the scene where Riff approaches Rocky, who is asleep, and then wakes him up with a candelabra, and he runs down the elevator shaft. And then we get this quick moment between Riff and Columbia where Magenta, where they do this
elbow sex.
Elbow sex. I don't know what else to call this.
They literally chant elbow sex, elbow sex. Yeah, I don't know. It's this bizarre choreography where they just bring their hands and forearms together and rub up their elbows and then back down again. And it's their little dance of love.
Yeah, it's like they're... In their culture, this is a handshake, is kind of what I gather from this.
Something like that.
They claim to be brother and sister. I was reminded of the Simpsons Halloween bit with Kang and Kodos, where they're holding hands and they say something, "We're just exchanging long protein strains. How do you do it?"
Right.
There's something to that, because as we'll find out later, they're aliens. And so they do this gesture a few times before that reveal towards the end of the movie. So they start layering in, though, every once in a while. They'll say something about aliens and you'll kind of go wait, what? They kind of blow past it real quick so they don't let you linger on it for too long.
You also don't really know why they're harassing Rocky, but ultimately we learn that they're trying to destabilize Frank and bring the whole empire down.
Yeah, they're not on board with the let's create a Rocky mission. Right. This is one of those plot things where I was like, okay, wait, what are they actually there on Earth to do? Why, what, some of that's kind of stuff where it's like the like logistics side of things, and which was the stuff I had to just like, I don't know, who gives a shit.
Yeah, you just let it go.
Yeah. So then we get, this is the scene now with Brad's room with the same thing.
Oh, Brad, darling, it's no good here. It'll destroy us.
Don't worry, Janet. We'll be away from here in the morning.
Oh, Brad, you're so strong and protective.
You! I'm afraid so, Brad. But isn't it nice?
Why, you? What have you done with Janet?
Nothing. Why do you think I should?
You tricked me. I wouldn't have. I've never.
Yes, I know. But it isn't all bad, is it? Not even half bad. I think you're really quite important. So soft.
No, stop. No.
Oh, Janet. Janet! Janet's probably asleep by now. Do you want her to see you like this?
This? Like how? It's your fault. You're to blame. I thought it was the real thing.
Oh, come on, Brad, admit it. You liked it, didn't you? There's no crime in giving yourself over to pleasure. Brad, you've wasted so much time already. Janet needn't know. I won't tell her.
Well, you promise you won't tell.
On my mother's grave.
Master, Rocky has broken his chains and vanished. The new playmate is loose and somewhere in the castle grounds. Magenta has just released the dogs.
Come in.
Riff interrupts the seduction of Brad, though, and tells Frankenfurter that Rocky has escaped, and Magenta has released the dogs.
Yes, the hounds.
You have to release the hounds. If you have a creepy mansion, there are hounds to be released. That is always a given. Rocky's running around in the rain. Janet is crying about Brad with these giant fake tears, which are awesome. And then she sees Brad and Frank on the monitor getting freaky.
Yeah,
and that's like her license now to do what she wants, because she finds Rocky. She rips her nightie to show even more of Susan Sarandon's nubile body, to where we get to touch me.
Then if anything grows, while you pose, I'll oil you up and drop you down. And that's just one small fraction of the main attraction. You need a friendly hand, but I need action. Touch me. I wanna be dirty. Thrill me, chill me, fulfill me. Creature of the night. Touch me.
I wanna be dirty.
Thrill me, chill me, fulfill me.
Creature of the night.
Oh, touch me. Oh, I wanna be dirty. Thrill me, chill me, fulfill me. Creature of the night.
Creature of the night. Creature of the night?
Creature of the night.
Creature of the night.
Creature of the night. Creature of the night!
Which is an incredible song, a total classic. It's this like sexual liberation anthem. She has just given herself up to Frank. She's seen that her fiance is also, getting with Frank. So she sort of gets hornier and hornier as she rips her slip apart to make these bandages for Rocky, who's like hiding out in his tank. And yeah, she like puts his hands on her body and just sings, touch me. I want to be dirty. I want to feel dirty. And meanwhile, Columbia, Magenta, and Riff are all singing along, watching it as well.
Like mockingly.
Mockingly. Yeah, because they're like, oh, look at this little thing, thinking that she's found her freedom.
Yeah, and again, the music here is, again, very kind of 50s, Dion and the Belmonts kind of sound.
Yeah.
I think they deliberately give anytime Brad and Janet kind of have a song, that's going to be this motif because that fits them more so than like Frank will get the bluesy stuff. The rock Riff gets more of the rock stuff. There's
actually a beautiful song that was cut from the film in this scene. It was in the show called Once in a While.
So baby, don't cry like there's no tomorrow. After the night, there's a brand new day, and there'll be no pain and no more sorrow. So wash your face and phone my place, it'll be okay.
That Brad sings after he slept with Frankenfurter, and it's still, you can still get the recording of Barry Bostwick doing it. They just cut it from the film, but it's sort of like the post-coital remorse song, and it's like a beautiful little ballad. But unfortunately, I think if you get like the DVD with BTS, you can see it. But other than that, it's just the audio recording.
I'll wager it's on YouTube somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure by now. Yeah.
Yeah. So Frank whips Riff, and Riff lies about what happened. But this is interrupted by a visit from Dr. Everett Scott.
Dr. Everett Scott, who arrives in his motorized wheelchair, and I don't think we really understand yet why he's there, but we learn that Eddie, the lover of Frankenfurter that Frank just killed with an ice pick and like split his brain between Rocky, is Dr. Scott's nephew.
Right. And also that he is investigating on behalf of the government, this alien invasion.
Yes.
So that's what he's doing there. Frank uses this electromagnet to basically yank his wheelchair through the entire house up into the lab to like this weird sitar music, which is really funny. Like he busts through a wall, and then we have everybody saying each other's names to each other for a while.
Janet, Dr. Scott, Janet, Brad, Rocky. 3 times.
Janet!
Dr. Scott!
Janet!
Brad!
Rocker! Janet!
Dr. Scott!
Janet!
Brad!
Rocker! Janet!
Dr. Scott!
Janet!
Brad!
Rocker!
This feels like it's out of Airplane. Like this is like we're truly in spoof mode for this. This is fun.
For sure.
And then it's meatloaf for dinner, literally.
Literally. But we don't know that at first. We're all sitting
they're at a dinner and they drop like a big turkey on the table. Like it's
yes.
And he carves it.
Yeah, with this motorized electric knife. Yeah. And then they say Dr. Scott's looking for his nephew Eddie, and Columbus seems Eddie, and then Frankenfurter says, "What a rather tender subject," as he's eating the meat.
Yeah, and they're mostly eating in silence. Like this is your classic like awkward dinner scene, filtered through the lens of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. They sing "Happy Birthday" to Rocky,
and they sing the Eddie song. When we're looking for him, like understanding that there was like a mystery of where he went. When Eddie said he didn't love his Teddy, you knew he was a no good kid. And when he threatened your life with a switchblade knife, what a guy, makes you cry. I did.
From the day he was born, he was trouble. He was the thorn in his mother's side. She tried in vain,
but he never caused her nothing but shame.
He left home the day she died. From the day she was gone, all he wanted was rock and roll porn and a motorbike, shooting up junk sweet little punk, taking everyone for a ride. Then he said he didn't like his daddy move, he was a no-good kid. But then he fell in line with a switchblade knife. What a guy!
Makes you cry.
And I did.
Yeah, Everett Scott has a German accent. Like, they're going for like a Doctor Strangelove thing with him, sort of. Although he is not manic and evil. He's very kind of straight laced with a German accent. But yes, then Frank yanks off the tablecloth to reveal a gruesome massacred Eddie in a coffin under the table.
Under the table, glass top coffin with organs displayed and very poorly executed practical effect, I think, but still gory in a sort of charming way.
This has got like some Dario Argento feel to it, like Suspiria kind of stuff. It's like,
for sure.
It's more about like being colorful and evoking the idea of horror than doing a convincing corpse.
That's right.
But everybody screams and starts running all over the place, and this is where I believe we get Planet Schmanet Janet.
I'll tell you once, I won't tell you twice. You better wise up, Janet Weiss. Your apple pie don't taste too nice. You better wise up, Janet Weiss. I've laid the seed, it should be all you need. You're essential as a pencil, wound up like an E or first string. When we made it, did you hear a bell ring? You got a block? Well, take my advice. You better wise up, Janet Weiss. The transducer will seduce ya.
My feet! I can't move my feet!
My wheels. My God, I can't move my wheels.
Yeah, which, so this is, we go back to that electromagnetic thing that Frankenfurter has invented, and he's somehow able to, one by one, freeze all these people in place and then turn them into statues.
It's like the Medusa device or something.
Yeah, exactly. There's like this handle, and he throws this handle, and it, one by one, freezes each of them in place.
And then as he's continuing this, this is part of the Wise Up Janet Weiss stuff.
Yeah.
As he's chasing her around, which is, again, this is like a little more of a 50s number, a lot of like kind of saxophone to it. And like, it's just kind of, it's just one of the really fun songs. Like he's going to menace this lady, but you're never too scared because it's just a lot of like, he's being so playful about it.
Right. Well, it's the cat and mouse that he loves. I mean, that's his whole thing, is the thrill of the chase.
Yeah, no, clearly he's turned on by this, as he's turned on by everything. I mean, he's, he like, I imagine this guy like, climaxes brushing his teeth. He's just that kind of guy.
What's interesting is that you also see Riff Raff and Magenta kind of getting off on it too. Like they every time they freeze someone, they get kind of more excited to pull the lever, which is weird because, we're only moments away from them turning on Frank. So, they're playing along and seeming to really enjoy themselves.
Yeah. They also mentioned Frank invented a teleporter. So he's got lots of inventions. And so there's something about being ready for the floor show.
Show.
He warps all of these people. He turns them to stone and warps them to some other part of the castle. And
where they've been dressed. So they when they freeze in their statues, they're suddenly nude. And then when
Greek statues, they're not just
Greek
like stone,
statues.
Greek statues.
Yeah, and then they're whisked away to the theater at the castle where they're on stage in Frank style drag. They all have their corsets and fishnets and boas and fantastic makeup. Still at this point made of stone until they are unfrozen.
For Rose Tint My World.
It was great when it all began. I was a regular Frankie fan, but it was over when he had the plan to start working on a muscle man. Now the only thing that gives me hope is my love of a certain dog. Rose tints my world, keeps me safe from a
he's demedusing them. They're singing, and they are now fully converted to Frank's
They're
way.
like absolutely. They have come to Frank's side of libertine sexuality, and they are ready to have an orgy in a swimming pool.
Correct. And now
but not before Frank sings the ultimate power ballad.
Yeah, this is Don't Dream It, which you mentioned before. And it's the thesis of the movie, really.
Whatever happened to Fay Ray? That delicate satin draped frame, as it clung to her thigh, how I started to cry, 'cause I wanted to be dressed just the same. Give yourself over to absolute pleasure. Swim the warm waters of sins of the flesh. Erotic nightmares beyond any measure. And sensual daydreams to treasure forever. Can't you just see it? Oh, oh, oh. Don't dream it. Be it. Don't dream it.
Yeah, whatever happened to Fay Ray? Like it's there's this image that Frank has of a sexually empowered, gorgeous woman that he once saw on the silver screen that he wanted to become, and that he feels like everyone should have the right to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's bigger than even that. Like the notion here is that like you can boil it down to something simple like let your freak flag fly, but that's kind of almost too simplistic. But it's so optimistic. What he's saying about there's something about like in the context of the movie he's talking about like I want to make my fuck buddy monster and leave me alone so I can do it. That's his dream. But he's speaking to this larger audience of people going like, it's okay to be who you are.
And there's this huge, this empty theater in Frank's mind is suddenly full of all those, freaks and weirdos from Time Warp. And there's like giving him this beautiful standing ovation as he sings this, this homecoming anthem, welcoming everyone to be their true selves. But then he looks around and he's just in an empty theater.
Well, yeah, and we skipped one thing that happens in there, which is when all of a sudden Riff and Magenta burst into the room, and now they're in like full like sci-fi gear.
The best costumes.
The best costumes. Riff Raff's Igor hump is gone. He's standing upright.
He's standing upright, and he has like a sort of pitchfork laser gun. Yeah.
It looks like like a big trident.
Yeah.
And she's kind of Bride of Frankenstein-y looking. But yeah, this is like they're literally like gold spacesuits that look like something out of like Flash Gordon. That's what they're wearing. And
this is where they turn on him and they say, say goodbye to all of this and hello to oblivion.
Yeah, this is where they turn on him. And again, a little bit of like, why are they turning on him? Like, what I gathered is like, I think the murder of Eddie was like a bridge too far. Not entirely sure why. They seem just as evil as Frank is, and I don't know why they would care about humans, but somehow he's crossed the line.
They're there to bring him back to Transylvania. That he's somehow there's some sort of like interplanetary code of conduct that he's violated, and
yes, he broke Star Trek's Prime Directive.
Exactly,
pretty hard. But like this is where they mention. Okay, transsexual Transylvania. It's like the planet of transsexual in the galaxy of Transylvania.
Yes.
Which is great. Like it's such a like no, we're not going to come up with a weird, Rigel 7. Like, no, it's just the planet is transsexual. Like, it's a whole planet of people like Frank, which, I would just give me like just 2 minutes of a shot just to see what
I know
like.
Would be so great. Yeah.
But yeah, they're there to drag him back to their home planet in chains, which he will not go.
On the day I went away, was all I had to say. I want to come again and stay. Smile, and that will mean I'm there. 'Cause I've seen blue skies through the tears in my eyes, and I realize I'm going home.
And he climbs up the set is the giant. It's like a cardboard version of the RKO logo, which is this big like radio tower on top of a planet Earth. Again, classic old movie studio stuff. So he climbs, but is blasted with the laser and dies. Falls into the pool.
Falls into the orgy pool.
Yeah. And then I believe this is where Columbia runs out. She's horrified. They kill her too.
Yep.
And then Rocky also like makes one last attempt, but like they don't shoot Rocky. Like he just climbs up to the top of the fountain or the tower, King Kong style, and just falls to his death.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's like we feel sorry for him, because he's loves his creator who was abusive to him, but we have sympathy.
Right. And then basically Riff and Magenta say, hey, you can't, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here because we're heading back to our home planet, which they do. They leave the castle, which takes off into the sky.
The castle becomes this spaceship. Yeah. And leaving Brad, Janet, and Dr. Scott laying in their lingerie on the earth, on the ground.
And our narrator tells us,
and crawling on the planet's face, some insects called the human race, lost in time and lost in space and meaning.
He walks out, and we get a reprise of science fiction double feature, and that's the end of the movie.
Wild.
Illogical. Well, yes, highly illogical, Mr. Spock. But like the whole thing just is this, it's a fever dream, but it leaves you feeling so good, even though it ends on such a kind of a downbeat note. It's this like, it almost felt like, oh, does this need like one more kick line or something to kind of send it off? But it's still trying to be a horror movie in some ways. So like I can see having the tragic ending, because throughout the movie we've seen this criminologist and he keeps talking about like, you see like police reports about the incident. So it didn't end entirely well.
Yeah. And also, I mean, aside from several people having died, Brad and Janet will never be the same. And I think that's like really the crux of the film, is that these two people have been forever transformed by their naivete, by virtue of going on this journey, knocking on this door, being brought into this seductive household. And they, you can never put that genie back in a bottle.
you can't put the genie back in the bottle. And I think this movie as a whole is, again, such a unique, singular thing. Like, it's lightning in a bottle because you can't replicate this. There was a sequel called Shock Treatment, which I know has its fans. I've never seen it, but I know it's generally regarded as
I love
lesser.
it. It's lesser, but I will say it was prophetic in the ways that it, calls out the phenomenon of reality television. It's really, really wild. They basically turned Denton, USA, the town where Brad and Janet are from, into a TV studio. And the whole place, like the whole show takes place in a TV studio where, like everything is run by an ad executive. It's very, very strange. Music is not as good. There are a couple bangers. Little Nell is in it. Patricia Quinn and Richard O'Brien are in it, but we have a different Brad and Janet, not Barry Bostwick and Susan Sarandon.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no question that movie would not have the following that it does have, if not for the original. And you mentioned like the soundtrack, like we've, as by now, as you're listening to this, you've heard clips of all of these songs we've been talking about. They are really, really good. I've been listening to the soundtrack a few times this week as in kind of preparation for this. And like, if the songs weren't as good as they were, I think the movie would not, I can't say it wouldn't be a good movie or it wouldn't work, but like all of the fun, like crazy sexual politics of this movie and the kind of things it stands for, like you need this really good soundtrack to get everybody along for this ride. And they're all bangers to a song.
Yeah. Every song is a hit for sure. Every song is a hit.
Yeah. And I can't even think of any other movies that are, I mean, the only other movie that's kind of a cousin to this would be something like Phantom of the Paradise, which is, but it's a different tone.
Also Little Shop of Horrors, I think, it came several years later, but I mean, I think it's in the same vein because it was like a pastiche musical that was a send up of the, original like 50s pulp horror film. Yeah. And then, incorporated some of these musical elements and had a lot of camp and really became a type of cult classic.
It did. I mean, and I love Little Shop a whole bunch. I think that would make for a great episode. I really like that movie, but that movie doesn't challenge its audience the way
right at all. No. Yeah, it's not really subversive. It's just entertaining.
Right. And that subversive angle. I mean, there are plenty of other movies that are subversive in different ways, but it's hard for me to imagine another movie that is as challenges people's notions of sexual conventions in such a fun package. Like it's a real like tightrope act to do this.
Well, what's wild too is when I was looking at this 2023 tour of Rocky Horror Picture Show with Barry Bostwick playing these like huge theaters and movie houses across the country, they're playing in places where they're passing laws to discriminate against trans people. And yet it's sold out everywhere, in Georgia, in, Ohio, this literally some cognitive dissonance allows for this film to be celebrated and beloved and upheld, as a cultural touchstone, while at the same time, allowing for discrimination against the very population that the film aims to celebrate.
Yeah. I mean, the film was actually selected for the national, what do you call it? Library of Congress registry of like important films. It was selected to be in there, which, tells you something. And I do think I definitely see what you're talking about in terms of like, why are audiences in these deep red states showing up? And I think the answer is, one, there's a lot of Brad and Janets out there with their own freaky stuff that they're not going to disclose. And two, I think even the most like deep red state is more purple than you think. When you look,
exactly.
It's like
sure.
When you look at like when it comes to like you think of like the most red state around like Tennessee or whatever, and you look at the vote and it's like it's super red state 55 to 45, right?
Dallas Theater Center is currently doing a production of Rocky Horror Picture Show right now, or Rocky Horror Show, the play, and it's not the first time they've done it. Like they had a really successful run of Rocky Horror Show the musical a few years back, and it's currently on stage in Dallas.
I'm just waiting for Lindsey Graham to get caught at one of these. Like, please,
Yeah. It's just, but I think ultimately that's kind of what the movie is about interrogating that hypocrisy and ideally trying to liberate the people who are oppressed by it.
Yeah. I mean, the whole point about the movie saying, again, be who you are, don't dream it, be it, is to say, like, there's nothing wrong with any of this stuff. Like, that's the thing, is it like, the quote unquote morally bad things in the movie are like putting an ice pick through a guy's head. That's bad.
Right.
But just having a bunch of sex and being weird, not bad. That's not
so bad.
That's not why they're dragging him back to his home planet.
Yeah, wearing lingerie is kind of okay.
Yeah, nobody's getting hurt. And so, to me, there's something so like even being the square cisgender hetero guy I am. Like, it's hard not to just look at this and go like, well, yeah, of course, everybody gets to be who they are. It doesn't matter. And like the tolerance angle of this, especially when you think about it in 1975,
yeah,
like we need it now in 2023, but even more so then, to just sort of, like there's something nice about the idea that like people in a red state can go see this movie and see a bunch of people just having a good time to some rockin' tunes and go like, oh, okay, it's a bunch of like, 15-year-old Jewish theater nerds throwing on makeup.
Well, Fox also did a TV remake a few years ago with Laverne Cox in it.
Didn't they do it for Glee? It was an episode of Glee.
Yes, first they did. They had an episode on Glee where they changed some things, but they did it in the high school. They did like a production of it or something, but they actually did the full Rocky Horror Picture Show made for TV, and it was literally a shot-by-shot remake. I mean, it was down to like the shoe floating by in the orgy in the pool. Like they captured everything.
Oh, and like the Psycho remake. Yeah.
Right. And it was not very good, but it was also on Fox, like just on TV, on network television with Laverne Cox singing I'm Just a Sweet Transvestite from Transsexual Transylvania, which took on a whole new meaning when you had like an actual trans person in the role.
Yeah. Yeah. I now that you say that, I do vaguely remember that being on. And to Disney's credit, who technically owns the rights now through all of those acquisitions, they have been pulling some movies, classic showings of movies. They've been kind of like pulling some of those back, but not this one, because they recognize that like you can't kill the live theater. I mean, that is the show. That is the movie at this point, is, going to see those live shows is what makes this unique and special. So credit to them for recognizing that.
Yeah.
So we're here at the end. We've been kind of talking around this already, but like, what do you think it is that's made this thing last for almost 50 years?
I mean, I think it's simply so unique. I mean, there's a couple things, right? There's the fact that the music is actually really good. There's the fact that there's this built-in now participation. So like for everyone who wants to let their freak flag fly, there's like a safe place to go do that. And also the sort of intrigue of the midnight movie. I mean, usually these interactive shows are like Friday or Saturday night at midnight or 11 p.m. So it's like, it's certainly not as epic of a cult classic now as it was in the, 80s and 90s. But the fact that it still happens in theaters all across the world, every weekend or every other weekend, definitely says that there's a staying power to the freedom that it gives people.
Yeah. I mean, the remit of this podcast is to talk about nostalgia, but there is a point at which something surpasses nostalgia and becomes a tradition.
Yeah.
And this is definitely in that thing where like the repetition of people going to screenings, dozens of times and learning all of the like things you're supposed to do and say along with the movie. Like that's not terribly dissimilar from going to a service, at a temple.
No,
it is
ritual. It's absolutely ritual. It's ritual. It's a queer ritual, but and also the part of the ceremony that happens before every live showing is the sort of mockery of the virgins, and they bring people up on stage who are there for the first time, and they put a big lipstick V on their foreheads. So there's always this like induction, into like the tradition of going, if you're a fan, you're going regularly, but also losing your Rocky Horror virginity is like a real thing that's still celebrated.
And what's nice about it is, for every kid out there who is struggling to figure out their sexual identity, this movie is there for them. And because it's now this tradition, it's like cemented in pop culture. It's like the pathway to get from that awkward, not knowing who you are to finding this movie and other people who, can say like, hey, you're one of us, you're okay. I think that I would hope that has to be an easier path than it was for you in the 90s, and certainly going back to the 80s and 70s. Like there's something comforting about the fact that like, if, one of my kids comes and tells me, hey, I might be gay or I might be trans, I can go like, great, I know something fun we can go do. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I think that's when I asked that thing about like what holds up and what doesn't, because back then, sexual expression, especially like alternative sexualities, queer sexualities, were still like coupled with danger and violence and, questions of consent. And so one of the things that I'm like troubled by the movie now, even though I still love it, but when I see it, I'm like, the ways that the tropes of sexual and gender transgression are sort of embedded in these other, moral failings is, it's like it's kind of a bummer because, it's not like just Wizard of Oz. It's not just colorful and delightful and fun and free. It's like, well, there's going to be murder and there's like, coercion and
there's a little bit of like they're coming to get you.
Yeah. Also that. So, when you're at Rocky Horror that you are representing the rebellious expression of sexuality and gender, and that there's like implicitly then the oppressive force that you're pushing against. And so I'm so grateful for the ways that it shaped me and like gave me the courage to be myself and gave me the tools to express myself at a really young age, but also it showed me one very sort of specific way to express myself that ultimately I would say like, didn't always serve me, as I grew up and understood how I internalized some of these messages, because it was literally the only example I had until maybe Rent and Hedwig,
Yeah. I mean, it is certainly a stepping stone to some of those other works where, thankfully it's not the only game in town.
Yeah.
But obviously a really important one that means a lot to a lot of people.
Generations of people.
Yeah, at this point, generations, absolutely. And but at the end of the day, like, even if you strip out all of the like sexual politics of this stuff, like, it's a good time.
Right. Yeah. It's a rock and roll, party.
And it's like, again, I feel like it's a great send off for Halloween. Like it's, for all of its like, adult stuff, it's still a lot of, it takes on the form of spooky, scary skeletons and stuff too.
It's spooky, scary, and it's carnivalesque.
Yeah.
It turns the world on its head, and that's what Halloween is like really about. Aside from the spooky, scary, it's the moment where we get to subvert all our expectations of how to behave, and that's the trick or treat of it.
I can't think of a better way to leave it than that. So, Shakina, if people want to find you and your stuff, where would they find you?
Yeah.
Plug away.
I'm on Instagram as Shakeen's, less or so the other social medias, but Shakeen's everywhere. And my website is justshakina.com. Literally just Shakina, both words.com.
Oh, okay. So it's JUST Shakina, so people can find it.
That's right.
Cool. And of course, please do watch Quantum Leap and go back and watch Difficult People if you have that on Hulu, and any of her other credits. Again, you all have IMDb, so you can find her and see what they are.
Yeah, look me up.
And if you have thoughts on our recent slate of Halloween episodes, which include this one, horror board games. Before that was Sweeney Todd. Then Resident Evil 4 and It's a Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. That was our Halloween stuff. Coming up, again, assuming everything goes according to plan, should be Muppet Treasure Island featuring Tim Curry, followed by Clue with more Tim Curry, and then Batman 89, which I've been like teasing forever, and finally I'll get to release that into the wild. So that's what's coming up next. If you have thoughts on that, you can still find us on the Graveyard, formerly known as Twitter, at NostalgiumPod. We're also at NostalgiumPod on BlueSky, and then we're just Nostalgium Arcanum on Threads and Instagram. And I would, again, if you're going to pick any one of those, go for the Instagram follow, because that's where I post all the bonus stuff for the show, little reels and extra things. So I think that'll just about do it. Shakina, thanks for doing this. I don't get to see you often enough. This was awesome.
Yeah, so much fun to catch up with you and like reminisce on the old times.
Yeah, we'll have to do a whole episode just on our times at Jewish camp, because that was fun. I don't know who else would listen to it, but it's
right
some stuff there. All right, so until next time, that is one more entry in the Nostalgium Arcanum.
Science fiction, double feature. Frank has built and lost his creature. Darkness has conquered. Brad and Janet, the servants gone to a distant planet. Whoa. At the late night double feature picture show, I wanna go. To the late night double feature picture show.
Janet! Brad! Rook!
Elmo!
Janet!
Dr. Scott!
Janet!
Brad!
Rook!
Elmo!
Janet!
Dr. Scott!
Janet!
Brad!
Rook! Janet!
Brad!
Rook!
Elmo!
Janet!
Dr. Scott!